Welcome to the Goat Shed. Today we're going to talk about the Bally replay unit, or replay register I believe they call it. Now I'll explain to you a little bit about this in just a moment, but today is Friday the 10th of June 2022, speaking to you all the way from down under here in Australia. It's 9 degrees Celsius outside, which is around about 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we don't do a lot of bingo machines here. Graham's been working on them for 37 years. I think their popularity isn't as large as it is in America, but nevertheless, there are bingo machines around and people do bring them in. We generally see 2 or 3 a year. This one's from a blue chip. We had to pull this right out of the machine because it was really sticking and not operating properly at all. But this is the first time I've ever really paid attention to one. And the fact of the matter is that these are based on the technology of an old mechanical adding machine. Yes, that's right. So really, Bally have actually used technology that was invented way back in the 1600s. So a guy called Blaise Pascal essentially invented the adding machine. I think it was around 1642. And he was a Frenchman. And there was another guy called Chicard, a German guy, was involved as well. But getting to the American part, a guy called William Seward Burroughs, he was involved and had patents put on machines, but he started in 1892, and I think they were from the Chicago area of the United States. And Burroughs was a very big company, and they made adding machines, accounting machines, comptometers, and they eventually got onto computers in the 70s, but they were bought out by Sperry, which later became Unisys, so Burroughs is a name that no longer exists. They used to have a big B in a circle as their logo. Now, my background is office equipment, so I fixed 1 or 2 Burroughs adding machines in my day, along with Olivetti's, Underwoods, which were essentially the same machine. We did a bit of work on Sunstrands in the early days, Deal, German machines, Kienzler, accounting machines from Germany. You name it, all sorts of adding machines. NCR made adding machines. So, just to name a few. Now, the thing with these is that we have the unit, either a 3-digit or a 4-digit replay counter, depending on what the game was. So we have a 4-digit one here out of Bally's blue chip. And as I said, I thought I'd just like to share with you how these actually work, just in case you don't know, and explain to you about Carryover, how that actually works. So we have 2 coils on this. Now we're looking at this upside down. So this is the first digit here, second, third and fourth digit. The green coil is actually the add a credit coil, or add a replay coil, and the brown one on the left side of the screen is the subtract. Now, in the add, the mechanism moves in the anti-clockwise direction. In the subtract, it moves in the clockwise direction. This is simply achieved by a pull which drives a gear, and then we have a check pull to arrest the movement of the unit. So if we quickly go like that, there you go. That moves. So that pull there, this pull here, will come down. It will drive that gear, and that pull over here, this one, which is sprung loaded, will come in and arrest the movement. Now, what my main problem with this is that this pull wasn't arresting the movement. It was badly worn. I had a Dremel and I got a flapping tool, and I worked on that a bit. It's still a little bit not right, but it's as good as I need it to be because it now works properly. So that's that side, and then we have almost identical on the other side, the subtracting mechanism. So we have a pull here, which is sprung loaded, here. Well, not sprung loaded, but sprung controlled. That pawl goes in and it drives the arm backwards. Now it has its own check pawl on the end there. So that bit there's like the check pawl. The pawl drives up, the check pawl moves into the next tooth and arrests the movement. All done by coil. So they work quite well. Now, like I said, I've had these gears off. There was all dried and hardened grease behind here. I've lubed the mechanisms, pivots, we're metal to metal. And this bit here will drop in. You can see it's got a little bit of a ridge on it. That'll drop in here. When everything's at zero, that'll drop down and prevent the wheels from moving any further. Can you see the little flat bit there? Yeah, I'll show you that in a wheel we've got out in a moment. So that's essentially how that works. Now, here's a wheel, and it's got gear teeth in it. There's the bit I was just talking to you about here, where it falls in at zero. You can see that. There's a spline here. There it is there. So that fits on the shaft that goes right through there. The gears fit on that shaft. And then we have what we call carryover pawls. Now these big gear wheels here, this gear wheel here is essentially driving on the next wheel here. So in other words, that wheel there is meshing with that. And this side of the gear is running over the edge of this, like that. Now, this bit here is the bit, as it turns around, it will push on this gear, and because this gear is meshed with this gear in these teeth here, as we mentioned, that will actually trip around and drive that gear one step forward. So at the moment we've got 14 credits. I should say 140 credits, I do beg your pardon, we're looking at it backwards. Now we've got 141 credits. Because as that moves around, and there's that bit there that's going to push the gear around between the 2 and the 3, here it comes. So we're going to watch it come round, and we're going to zoom in if we can. I think that might be good enough. And we're going to watch down here. And you're going to see that bit coming around just now, and it's going to push. There it is there. That's it there. I'm pointing to it. It's going to push that round, and because that gear here is meshed in with there, it'll turn it over. 153, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. Now, as we get around, I'll spin that round real quickly. We're at 170, 180, 180, 192, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 99. The 2 gear wheels come into position because they're pushing and driving both the 1s, 10s together. So that's how they work, and that's exactly how an adding machine works. The difference with an adding machine is it has a rack that moves through, and connected to the end of that rack and the wheel there's the bit that is used to print. The rack goes up so far and it stops and tells the thing that it's got to print an 8 or a 9 or whatever on the printing mechanism. But this is just a direct drive system between the correlation between the carryover pawls or carryover gear and the replay register gears on the end of the wheels. So how's that? It's pretty interesting, isn't it? So I was quite fascinated when I discovered that. I didn't realise that that's how it actually happened. Oops, I better get that off. Now the other way it moves around is we've got 224 replays on there now, and as I said, if we go in the clockwise direction, it just counts back. Now the interesting thing about a bingo is if the machine's turned off and there are replays on the register, it'll count them back to zero when you've turned the game on. I think everyone may have noticed that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring these all back to zero for you. Takes a while. Now that one's at zero, and what you might note that this hub here is now ready to drop in. That one's at 8. $28, $22, $19, we're nearly there. Now you watch. 3, 2, 1. We're looking at this bit here. 0. See that dropped in. So the idea of that is that there's little lugs there on the reels. That's dropped in, and that can no longer go beyond 0. It can only go forward. 1 replay, 2 replay, 3 replay. So that's how they work. There are switches connected to this, which we won't go into, but it's also interesting to note that a bingo machine can actually have, when you've got credits on it, you can't put coins in it. You can only press the credit button. Okay, so if anyone wonders about that, there is a mask that goes over here, which I took off earlier, but it goes on to make it look a bit obviously neater and everything. Wanted to clean that up. So yeah, I hope you found that useful and interesting. Another idiosyncrasy of bingo machine in this respect is that the coil stop is actually like backwards compared to what we're used to on like a pinball machine. See that? So normally this bit would be pointing out the opposite way to the bracket where you screw it in. It's just the way they had to make them fit. So that's another interesting idiosyncrasy. But there you go. So Bally didn't invent that mechanism. They invented the mechanism they wanted for their bingos, but they didn't. The technology was already there from way back in 1642. So this has been another Goat Shed presentation.